I want to start by asking you. Last year, Infinity War was a huge superhero cinematic event,
Right.
and Endgame this year as well is looking forward to be the most anticipated film release of the year. How does it feel for you as a filmmaker?
It's the most exciting part of that has nothing to do with the money or the box office these movies make. It has to do with the global reach of the movies and the fact that you're able to tell stories that, touch people all over the world. People all over the world are passionate about these films, and just coming here and seeing how Indian fans are reacting to these movies, and the reaction to Infinity War was incredible here. So that's the exciting part of it. I mean, we come from a large family, and as kids, we would entertain each other by telling stories, and now we get to do that for people all over the world.
Your brother Anthony and you have shot both the movies, Infinity War as well as Endgame, back to back over a span of, I believe it was about 6 months or so.
Yeah, it took us about a year of shooting. So each movie was 6 months.
Each movie was 6 months.
So Infinity War, we started in January of 17 and finished with Endgame in January of 18. And then we went back in the fall of this year and shot another 2 months on Endgame because we didn't complete the movie.
Okay.
And then just a few weeks ago did some reshoots.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Saving the best for last, as it were.
It's an iterative process. That's how these movies work. They constantly evolve. There's so many characters that there's always some piece of information that you weren't banking on, that the audience may not be following, that you need to solve.
What was it like as a filmmaker? What was the experience like for you to work on these really complex, set pieces and putting all these characters together? Like you said, depending on how audiences react to these characters, to then keep changing the script and the screenplay. What is the entire process like for you as a filmmaker?
We love it. I mean, that's why we do it. I think is that the intellectual exercise of trying to take this many characters and fit them into a 2.5 hour, 3 hour film is very rigorous, and it requires a lot of discipline and focus. And we've got incredible collaborators and the writers, Marcus and McFeely, who've done all 4 of the Marvel movies that we've done together. So we have a great time, the 4 of us, sitting in a room just trying to figure out the best version of these stories to tell.
As filmmakers, when you look at the superhero genre, a lot of people now debate that the genre has reached a saturation point, as it were. But what is your take on that as a filmmaker who's been so ingrained into the culture now? I
mean, it's hard to say that they've reached a saturation point because look at the box office of Infinity War, Black Panther, Captain Marvel. I mean, it just doesn't seem to be slowing down. I think that they keep reaching an even broader and broader global audience. I think there's something elemental about superheroes. They're mythological, that they're archetypal, they represent characteristics in humanity that people can identify with, and each hero has a different code, and depending on who you are as a person, you can identify with that hero. So I don't know, I don't see that going away anytime soon. I just see the stories evolving and being told in different ways to keep them fresh and surprising, and different tones, but I don't think you can call this a fad. I think that, if it's a fad, it's a 30 or 40-year fad.
Is there anything in particular that you would be looking forward to as a filmmaker as far as the genre is concerned?
I love when people find ways to subvert the genre and subvert my expectations and, tell a story in a very unique way. So that's what I look forward to, is really inventive execution or surprising story elements. That's what we always try to do with these films. And Winter Soldier, you find out that the good guy is the bad guy, and Civil War, we tore the Avengers apart, and Infinity War, we killed half the characters. So we're always looking for an ignitable concept, and that's what I look for when I watch these movies.
So coming to Infinity War and the fact that we lost half the Avengers, as a filmmaker, again, did you receive any sort of fan backlash from people saying that?
I think there were a lot of angry people. I mean, we weren't expecting. To be fair, people are very emotionally connected to these characters. You give them 10, 11 years of story, and they feel like these characters are part of their life. People start watching them when they're 10, and now they're 21. And I think that that has an emotional impact on them, and they care about the characters. So we certainly expected a response. We didn't expect it to be that intense of a response, and certainly there were moments where we had 10-year-old children asking us with tears in their eyes why we killed Spider-Man, and so it's you can feel a little bit guilty as a storyteller, but the intent was that to reflect life, and that not all the good guys don't always win.
Would you advise fans to carry tissue boxes for Endgame?
I I would. I think I've told people to prepare for an emotional ending, and it's certainly. I think it's going to be very emotional.
Considering now that Infinity War, when the trailer came out, there was some misleading footage in there that was intentionally put in, and rumors are that we see that with Endgame as well. Do you think now that's become a necessity, considering that there's so many people who have these, trailer breakdowns and analysis going into the movies? Do you think that takes away from the experience of watching the film for the first time, or is it something that you embrace?
No, I think that my job as a storyteller is to protect the story for people who want to go into the theater having a fresh experience of that story. And I think that we live in a culture now that is driven by the desire to find everything out yesterday. And I don't subscribe to that. I react against that. And so, we are very, very particular with the way that we hide the information, and that we have the abilities with VFX to alter shots in a way that, reserve that information for screening of the film. I think that if it upsets some people, that it's okay. They don't have to go see the movies. But I think it's more important to protect the people who want a truthful experience when they get to the theater. They don't want it spoiled.
Okay. After Endgame, are the Russo brothers done with the MCU, or will we see you coming back?
No, I mean I'm sure at some point we'll come back. I think that we need a break after 4 movies, but we love telling these stories. We love interacting with global audiences, and I think when we find the right story to tell, we'll be back. We certainly had an amazing experience with working with Marvel for the last 6 or 7 years.
What would you say has been your biggest takeaway or biggest learning from this entire experience?
Just that the world is getting smaller, and that the stories are becoming more global, and they have and that having global appeal to storytelling is really valuable. Representing different points of view is the most important part of being a storyteller. I think the biggest responsibility of being a storyteller.
Besides Captain America, who's your favorite Avenger?
Spider-Man. Growing up, he was my favorite. I just love the notion of a character who's essentially Peter Pan, who has this adult responsibility thrust onto him, this tragic history with his uncle, and it was a character that I could relate to because he was so close to my own age.
Have you had any sort of exposure to Bollywood filmmaking, to Bollywood movies? What would you?
Yeah, occasionally over the years I have. I mean, I haven't been able to watch much content in the last 7 years outside of these movies over and over in an edit room. But I've talked about Dabang. I saw that on a plane a few years back. When I travel, it's my time to catch up on films, and I tend to like to watch global cinema so I can see what's going on in every market, and the way that people are responding to stories, and the way that people are telling stories. I love the camera work in that movie. I thought it was really dynamic. I told an interesting story yesterday about Robo. Almost influenced the ending of Avengers Age of Ultron. There was a sequence in that, at the end of Robot, where all the robots come together and they're going to create the giant snake. Mm-hmm. All the Ultrons came together and they created a giant Ultron, and that was a direct influence from that film. Unfortunately, it got cut for time, but it's nice to know that there was some Bollywood filmmaking that had influenced a Marvel movie.
I think fans will be really excited to hear that.
Yeah.
And on that note, do you have any message for the Indian fans who are really waiting to watch this movie?
I think, I hope that they love the movie as much as my brother and I do. We really do feel like this is our best work, and we're excited to have been on this journey with them, and I want to see how they react to the end of it.
Thank you so much for giving your time for us today.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
All right.
Great
Take
questions.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.